So hello everybody, and welcome to the presentation of the partner survey. And the partner survey is really important because that is when we go out and ask our partners what they think about us, and also ask them for more detailed guidance on what we can do to improve. As usual, it is partnerships who will do the presentation of the results. So Nikolaj, Gilbert will do the presentation also today. And I should use the opportunity to tell you that, as you may have seen in the information last week, we have done a change in our setup. Communications and partnerships have been separated again. John Liden left us, as you know, and I've decided to split the two units. And the details you have seen in the written communication. And both Pete, heading the communications unit, and Nikolaj, heading the partnerships group, will report to me. That's so much for the organizational structure. Back to the partnership survey, or the partner survey. I have to thank you all who have contributed to engaging with partners, because that has really made a difference. The joint effort you all have made has increased the response significantly. We've never had so many partners responding to our survey. It will help us in going forward, addressing the right questions on how to improve. So without further ado, Nikolaj, the floor is yours. We're really looking forward to see the outcome of the survey. Please.
Thank you very much, Grete. And I have the Madonna on today, so I can move a little bit around, because the plan is also to have an interaction on some of these main inputs that you will see from the partner survey for this year. When they were asking us to do this town hall on partners, I said, why am I the one to come after the award ceremony, after the Oscars? Of course, that's a very hard one to pick up on, because I don't have anything to hand out today. I have no individual prizes for any individuals, although many deserved, as you saw last time. But there is a collective prize to UNOPS on our partner survey for this year, and you will see those results in a short while. As you know, every year UNOPS we conduct this partner survey, and this year has not been different than the others. So we had a record number of interviews of 522 interviews with partners, 142 people from 49 different UNOPS offices actually conducted interviews with partners. And I want to thank you all, as Grete also did, for your really strong engagement in this process. It's been a remarkable achievement by everybody in the field in particular. Before we go into the results, you have to be patient a little bit. So first, I just want to get everyone on the same page of who it is that we are talking about when we talk about partners. And then we're going to dig a little bit into what is actually the drivers of satisfaction of partners. What is actually the interactions that partners have with UNOPS? And it is not a one-to-one correlation. There are many inroads into partnership with UNOPS. So not as a surprise to many of you, we have the two main categories here, the United Nations and governments. And also, if you look at the distribution of the people we interviewed, roughly 75% were done with these partners. And also, if you look at the regional split, it was, as I said, very broadly out. We had Africa as the biggest region in terms of interviews, but all regions were actually contributing very well. And I will come to the results, if we talk about partner satisfaction, what do you actually think drives a happy customer? And I would actually like, you just had lunch, so you must be fresh and you had coffee after lunch, so maybe some of you want to shoot me some ideas on what can drive partner satisfaction. So don't be shy. Anyone? Quality? Good food? What? Good food is a good one. Yeah. Our people? Yes. Results? Communication? Huh? Sorry? Quality. Not to forget. Good communication. Yes, so we can probably have a list of 10 or 15 within the next 5 minutes if we continue this conversation, because there are so many things that drive partner satisfaction. And I took out some examples here. This example is actually a project with Korea. It is a project where our procurement unit has built up the capacity of a partner. So they are doing sustainable public procurement training for a partner like Koika in 15 locations around the world. This definitely drives partner satisfaction. And following this project, it has led to around 5 to 10 new projects in other areas in our operations than procurement. Staying on the Korea side, this is the yearly meeting that Grete and I attended with Koika. This is in Seoul. This is their museum of development that they have constructed. This also drives partner satisfaction, because what we do in these meetings is that we discuss priorities, their development policies, and we discuss how can we actually help them implement on the things that they want to see in their development policy. In this case, what Korea is very focused about is the SDG on education, and we built a lot of training facilities, schools now for Korea. So understanding the agenda of the partners on the ground, but also in the capitals, is extremely important. But, of course, I would say the main contributor is all the interactions that we have in the field. This is where your teams and the people on the call, probably from the field, are interacting with the partner on a day-to-day basis, on a long duration of time, and where you really have an influence in building rapport and managing the relationship with the partner. So, of course, these interactions in the field are extremely important for partner satisfaction. So the impression that we make, our project managers, day by day, is really key. Also, bringing in the right skills at the right time and having attention to detail is something that partners like. And I think the next slide here, I like actually the contrast between this picture and this picture, because it also tells a lot about what UNOPS is about. Here, this is a hospital in Nicaragua that we have provided technical assistance and other things in helping building. So this is about applying not only methodologies, but also skills, people, management, stakeholder management. It brings in everything that UNOPS stands for into a successful project outcome. And then, not the least, also the right people in the right place. And this is also something that we have seen has been very important on the HR side, that we are able to actually deploy the people when you need the people in the field. So this is also a key driver of satisfaction. And I don't want to forget that everything that we do here in headquarters, everything that the Global Shared Service Center does in Bangkok, and this is actually the picture when they received the award, I think last time. This is the Global Shared Service Center in Bangkok. All the One UNOPS, all the processes, all the HR services, financial HR, all of these are entry points into the partner. So if a partner supervised person is not receiving his salary, he will not be happy no matter how well the project is executed. So there are so many things that actually say, I actually contributed to a higher partnership satisfaction. And I think this is like the orchestra of UNOPS that needs to work and function extremely well together to drive these results. And now, I will not keep you waiting for so much longer. You will see the results. So, some of you who have been here for a while will remember the journey that we have been on the last 5 years in terms of satisfaction. So we have been quite steady around 77, 76, again 77. Then last year we made a good solid jump on 82, which I was very happy about because my balanced scorecard target with Grete was 80, so that was very, very good. And then this year. So some of you know the result already, but I have to ask if anyone wants to guess. And please be courageous as well. What do you think we have achieved this year?
What's your target?
Oh, Torsten, that's a fantastic question. My target is 80, so I could be 80.5, right? And then I was still... Okay, no one can follow up on that one. So I will just show you the result. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the result of the survey, 91%. So I think you should give yourself... yes. So it is really an outstanding achievement. And what I try to illustrate in the beginning is that there is no one that can say, I was the one leading this result. It's actually everybody. And I think it's a recognition of the focus that this organization has in terms of, okay, whatever we do, the customer, the partner comes first. And this is now actually being translated into figures like this, which I think that is a remarkable achievement. So we are doing a lot of things right in this organization. UNOPS is doing a lot of things right. And I have seen other organizations that can only dream about a result like this. So you should really, really be proud of this. And Grete, my target cannot be 90% next year, please. But we will go a little bit more into detail on the numbers. There are, of course, always some devil in details. So you will see a little bit more here. Here are some figures. So the reason why there is a 1% difference, Torsten, you will probably pick up on that very quickly, is that this is only with the one before is with current partners, and this includes also past partners. So that's why there is a difference. But mainly, if you look across here, there are some findings that I think is useful to pick up upon. So overall, as I said, very, very good. Government seems to be more in favor of us than our UN partners. It's still a strong result. But of course, we have to look at the small things here because the numbers are that great. So we have still a little bit some people in the United Nations area that are not that happy. In terms of likelihood to recommend, this question basically asks people, would you recommend UNOPS to another agency, for example? And here it's very consistent also with the overall satisfaction, so the governments coming out strongly and the United Nations a little bit less. Then in terms, we also ask in the survey about collaboration in the UN, so how well does UNOPS actually collaborate with their sister agencies in the field and so on. And here we are, if you look from here, we are going a little bit down, so there is maybe some room for improvement in the terms of how we engage with other agencies and how we actually do joint programming, joint projects together. There might be more potential. And we are actually doing things here, for example, with the United Nations Environment Program that could address some of these things here. The last one is our expertise. Here I think there is actually a very significant difference between the United Nations and the government. And I'm actually very pleased to see this because these are the governments that we work with in the field that they actually perceive our expertise to be extremely, extremely strong. So this will be, procurement, infrastructure, HR management, project management, and so forth. But again, overall, this might be an area where we need to continue to focus on building our expertise to make sure that it continues to be relevant for the partners going forward. And then in the United Nations system, well, I mean, to me, it's not a surprise that they seem to value our expertise a little bit less than governments. Maybe that's because we're not a policy or normative mandated agency. But while the governments really see, okay, what is the value of having someone on the ground that can actually deliver projects and make projects happen? I think that is what is reflected in this number. Another thing that we look on is what we call Net Promoter Score. This is something that also is used a lot in the private sector. It basically means that you take the promoters, those that has the highest score and likely to recommend, and you subtract those who are not very likely to recommend. So this gives a score from this year of 41%, and this is quite outstanding as well, that we have such a high score. Here is the basic framework where it says in this 41 we have, this qualifies as being great. So also a strong indication of partners wanting to promote UNOP also to others. This is very important. So now I showed you a little bit some figures. Now I will show you a little bit about some comments that were made. So words to describe UNOPS. What are we doing well? What can we improve? And so forth. So in terms of what works well, you see some of the word counts that are here on the slide. But what they have come up with is communication. And communication in this context is the one mostly on the field level. So the flexibility and communication is one thing that they value on the projects. And the projects are running smoothly, and we have a good planning stage of completion, and everything works well. As one quote is, monthly updates are happening, progress is being shown, and so forth. So this is something that you can look more into detail in the report, but this is something that they pulled out. Then if you look at how to describe UNOPS, some of the words that they use, you can see again here is in the word count, is professional, it's efficient, it's flexible, and it's responsive. And I don't think anyone would disagree that this is in the DNA of all of you here and in the DNA of UNOPS. And I think really this is also what is driving this huge increase in partner satisfaction, is that we care. We care about these things. And this is also described well from these responses. We tried to look back from last year, and we said, okay, what was the mentionings that was said there? And it's actually quite consistent. So you have efficient and flexible on the top, as well as being a reliable organization. Reliable is also a very, very strong word, and something that I think is useful that we be associated with. So, of course, these were some of the good things. Where can we further improve? And I think I want to put that question back to you. So, anyone who's brave enough to come up with some improvement areas for UNOPS in this big forum, and we can see what the partners think. Silence. Huh? Go.
Maybe it's not something that the government can perceive, but the engagement with the government should be better.
Yeah. Yeah.
With the satisfaction survey, you had, highly satisfied, ambivalent, or and then not satisfied. What was the split by thematic sector? For example, were they super happy with procurement, super happy with infrastructure, super happy with, hosting? Where was the demographics? Where was the split? Where were they happy by area?
So I should be very careful in asking the audience for areas of improvement when you come up with such a difficult question to me. But we don't have the level of detail on hosting or infrastructure at this level. We don't have these. What we do have is that we know, of course, which partners we have interviewed and what is the main area of work we have done with each of these partners. So, for example, the hosted entities, we would have interviewed them and we can know exactly what they think about us. But there I would have to look a little bit more into the detail to give you that response. All right, well, let's see. Here are some of the word counts. So we just took out some of these examples and some of these quotes. So reporting, and it has actually come up more frequently lately, especially financial reporting was mentioned. Someone says we are late, and someone says we don't have a unified format. The timeliness, again, linked actually to the same aspects. This was about, actually, UNOPS asked us for the second installment payment without giving us the first financial report. So that's a good business model. So of course this is something that we need to be extremely aware of. That's something that needs continuous attention, because if there is anything that can change a customer from being happy to being unhappy is if we're not delivering on our promise. And that goes on financial reporting, but it also goes on everything else that we stand for. So of course we cannot neglect these things, and we need to work further on this. Another thing that was mentioned was contracting and the personal turnover. So this also came up in the survey, that there was sometimes an orphaned change of personnel during actually the project cycle. And of course this can be an issue for the partner if they're used to having relationship with one person and this person changes. So this was also areas where we could improve. If you look at the 2015 survey, some of these points came up. Timeliness came up at that time. One thing that came up last year was the value for money. It did not actually come up that strong this year. However, I do want to still focus on that, even though it's not, it didn't came up, because I think the whole value for money thing, also with the new SG and the UN reform taking place, it's going to be extremely important for us to continue to demonstrate that we are actually an alternative that provides cost effectiveness, value for money, and so on. So this journey, I think, will need to continue, and we need to be better at explaining that value for money story also going forward. Another question we asked them was barriers of partnering with UNOPS. Here I think also there is a couple of interesting observations. One thing was the lack of funding, and I think the way this was phrased by the partners was that sometimes they would like us to do upfront investments or actually contribute on thought leadership and so forth in a given area. But we have an issue in actually committing to say yes and do some work, because we are not a core-funded agency like other UN organizations. Of course, with the new, we have initiative, for example, the social impact investment initiative, which actually partly, I would say, starts to address this issue. But of course, it is part of the limitations that we also have as a self-financed organization. But it did came up as a barriers to partner with UNOPS going forward. Another thing which should not be a surprise is that we are still fairly unknown. We have made great leaps forward in the last 2 to 3 years, and Grete has put a lot of emphasis on our strategic positioning and actually improving our awareness with everybody. So I think we are addressing it, but of course, partnering with UNOPS doesn't give you the same brand recognition as partnering with UNICEF, for example, who has a much stronger brand. And this we just have to be also aware of, and that the efforts that we actually do in terms of brand recognition, strategic positioning, actually helps partners make the choice also to partner with UNOPS, because it is a factor that is important to them. What could we learn from others to improve our performance? I think this is a great question. So this is where you ask the partner, what are others doing that could help us in UNOPS be better? So what they said to us on this question is that it's really important that we have the local context and the knowledge in the environment that we operate in. And apparently others are doing a little bit of a better job in terms of understanding that local context, that region or that country where we work in. Maybe, and I'm just guessing now, this turnover of personnel that was actually also in one of the other ones could also be a factor. So if you change frequently, of course this local knowledge can be jeopardized with frequent change of personnel. So that might be a factor playing into this. But I think by putting it up here, partners are saying, listen, we partner with you also because we want a partner that knows the environment that you operate in. So that focus needs to definitely continue. And then again, stakeholder management, brand recognition also came out again here. Is something that others are doing a lot in terms of this, these dimensions, and something that they think that we could do more on as well. Now, a little bit away from the qualitative comments. I hope this gave you a lot of food for thought, and if you have suggestions on how we could actually address some of those, we will be happy to receive those either in the questions session afterwards or actually in writing after the town hall. We also asked them about the SDGs. So this is the first time we actually asked the partners about what do you think UNOPS can contribute with on the SDGs. And here, as you all know, we are supporting a lot of the SDGs. So we don't have specific ones we say we do this, this, and this. But actually, this picture maybe can give us some inspiration where we at least are perceived as being stronger than others. So the industry, innovation and infrastructure was the largest one. Then the partnerships for the goals, interesting that they bring this one up, that they actually feel that we are good in bringing actors and partners together to deliver on the SDGs. I think that was interesting also maybe in relation to the private sector collaboration that we are embarking on. Good health was mentioned also a lot. Of course, all the work we do in terms of hospitals, health clinics, maternity clinics and so forth comes under this. Water and sanitation was mentioned as a key area of expertise for UNOPS. And of course, peace, justice and institutions, strong institutions. All the work that we do with the UN Secretariat, peacekeeping and so on falls, of course, perfectly into that category. And then the last one that I choose to highlight here is the sustainable cities and communities. Again here, I think it relates to the whole urban infrastructure area and space where there is a lot of movement going on in the UN system and in the world in general. So this is what the partners said. If you then overlap this with the great analysis that was done by SPA and the finance team with Marcus, they actually did with the RBR analysis. They tried to map our delivery according to the SDGs. And what we saw is that there's, luckily enough for everybody, that there was a good match on the 4 of these areas where what partners believe we have expertise in is also what we deliver. So that was number 9, the infrastructure, the good health, the peace and security, institutions, and the sustainable cities. So these were actually mapped or tagged as 76% of our delivery in 2015. So UNOPS are extremely relevant also for the SDGs, and we can see this here, and they're actually seeing us as providing huge value to them in these sectors. So I'm almost at the end now, but of course, what does all this lead into? When you have satisfied customers, UNOPS, we did a calculation some time back that says that 80% of new business to UNOPS comes from existing partners. So of course, having happy customers is an extremely strong indicator for us going forward in terms of will we be signing, will we have new projects coming on that can help people in need and deliver on the mission that we have. And so just this year, we have signed many new agreements. I just highlight some of the institutions that we signed with new agreements with this year here. And also for everyone to know that the pipeline of UNOPS in terms of new projects has never been better than it is today. So you are actually working for an organization that has a very strong future ahead of us. And I think we have seen why, because what we actually do matters on the ground. So my closing is about collaboration, and this might turn into a personal story as well. But what I really think that we are good at UNOPS, and I've been here 3.5 years, is that we work across units. We don't have a silo approach. We team up. We have the customer, the partner in focus in everything we do. And I think this picture, that's why we choose this, is actually we are pulling in the same direction. I think this makes us quite unique in the UN system. And it also means, in my view, that we can play a much greater role in terms of responding to the new Secretary General, the quest for the UN reform, and so on, because we have so much to offer. And the discipline that we can do in our mandated areas, the ability to deliver on the ground and implement, it's being recognized by the partner. It is a discipline. So we should actually be very proud and seeing what we do matters a lot for the partners and for the people in need. So you should really be proud, I think, in contributing to actually results and impact on the ground. So there are many more data points, there are many more analysis behind all these results, but I will finish the survey presentation now, and we will have some time for questions. And just to say that this is just the beginning. So now there will be a lot of follow-up. There will be a new WebEx tomorrow on the survey. There will be a regional breakdown where you could see, okay, in Asia, in Africa, what are the results, what are the specifics that needs to be addressed, and so forth. And we will also have conversations that Grete will talk about in her closing after the questions. So I just want to say thank you again for just focusing on the partner and for delivering this excellent service to the customers, because this has brought us into this position that we are in today. So thank you big time, and then we have some time for questions now if anyone would like to ask. Thank you.
Let me be the schoolboy who's asking the teacher the first question. Very interesting. Thanks so much for the presentation. Could you give a little bit more color on you know, some of the, you talked about satisfied partners. Globally, what would you say is the most satisfied partner and what is the least satisfied partner with us?
So I will start with least. Thanks, Sebastian, for being the good schoolboy and asking the first question. Actually, when we look back, and it's not only this year but also last year, the ones that we seem to have the least satisfaction with are the hosted entities. So some of those are a little bit more critical in terms of how we support them, and also how we what services we are providing to them, clarity on those services. So these are, I would say, the category of partners. You know the names, so I don't need to mention those, but this will be the least satisfied. The ones that are most satisfied, and we saw that in the slides as well, are really the recipient governments, those governments that where we go into the Ministry of Public Affairs, public transportation, where we go in and help them with capability development and so on, where we really sit close to them and work to build their capacities. This is where we see the biggest impact. Thanks, Sebastian. Yeah.
Just a follow-up question.
Yeah.
When you mention the hosted initiatives, do you mean our people who work in the Secretariat are dissatisfied with the services that we provide to them, or the donors that fund the initiatives?
The first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I have a reflection more than a question, and it was on the slide with overall partner satisfaction. I don't know if you could bring it up again.
Of course I can. Sorry, there's a lot of clicks here. We're good at clicking.
No, and this was also a little bit in relation to Jim's comments about who is happy with regards to what. No, just one ahead, the full, that one.
Yeah.
Because to me the most striking result was a little bit the bars 2 on the right-hand side about perceived expertise. And to me, yeah, exactly. So kind of a big cut. It could also depend a little bit on what they're actually buying from us in terms of services and what matters to the client in terms of the value proposition for why they buy those services. So typically governments would be buying procurement and infrastructure, right? Whereas the UN would maybe approach us more for other kinds of services, such as HR services or financial management services. So it depends a little bit on why they are approaching us and how much you value expertise in that context, or if perhaps you're looking for efficiency.
I fully agree, Marcus, and I think this is also in terms of the broadness of the services that we offer might be a little bit more narrow down here, why it could be broader up here. So there is definitely an element of what it is that they are exposed to in terms of UNOPS. And I think this is a good reflection, and maybe something we need to dig a little bit deeper into as we analyze the results further. Yes?
Thank you for this. It's really helpful to see the breakdown. I was just wondering, do we also have further analysis depending on the role of, is it a client or a funding source? Because most of the time the government is usually the beneficiary, and whereas, is there a breakdown of satisfaction from the funding source perspective and the client perspective?
Yeah, of course, we have interviewed both governments that are receiving, for example, aid from the World Bank, and those governments. This is the majority. So the majority of the responses you see here is actually from governments or ministries in Africa, Asia, and so forth. While there are also a few donors on the government side, but this is a minority. But we have these data, so we know exactly what the donors say and what actually the recipient governments say. So we can show you this afterwards as well. I actually wanted to show, if there is, while you think of the next question, if there is, I actually wanted to show you this one, because I just got this in from a friend who works at the Global Reputation Institute. And it's just, you know, a reflection. This is, they just completed the Global Reputation Survey for the private sector. And actually, there's a Danish company here as well called Lego. Together with Rolex and Walt Disney. And those were the ones that came in highest in 2017. It was just published now. And it's not so much interesting in terms of which companies it is. It's not why I wanted to show you this slide. But it was actually the dimension that they measured on. Because I thought when I read it, that it gives us at least some inspiration. Because some of the things that were discussed was offers high quality products and services, good value for money, the second one, meet the needs of the customer, stands behind its products and services, has a positive influence on society, and behaves ethically. It's fair in the way it's doing business, well organized, open and transparent, and it's the first company to go to new market with new products and services. I think this is quite some good inspiration in terms of what we do already, but also what we could see. What are the things that, at least in the private sector, are things that are being valued, and what of these can we also see? Maybe we should also emphasize more on these. So this was just a slide, food for thought, taken in 5 minutes before you came. So, but I think this one was interesting to include. Okay. Any other questions before I hand over to Grete, actually?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I see a big gap actually between the presentation that show a super enthusiastic partner survey and what we see in IPMG, for instance, regarding the support we give to the field, what we actually deliver on the field, the operational excellence we talked about. So I don't know if we can directly relate the partner satisfaction to the excellence of what we deliver on the ground. I mean, of course, there is an impressive number here, is 91%. But what we see is mainly we have at engagement stage, we have still a lot of under-budgeted or not well-planned engagement that will cause problem to deliver. And then, because partner, mainly they are maybe in the headquarters, in the office, they receive the report every 3 months, and they may not be on the ground to see what we deliver exactly. So I don't know how you relate that, and it will be interesting, as Jim said, to make a difference, at least for infrastructure projects, and per type of project of this survey.
So I can answer your question in a few ways. I think one thing is maybe we are good at actually not showing the whole of our kitchen to the partners. So there are issues, of course, on our projects which needs to be addressed. But maybe those issues are addressed internally without being so visible to the partners. So that can be one aspect which then is not picked up in the survey. But I think you're raising a more important question, is how can we continue to focus on actually making sure that we improve on these aspects? Because the partner survey is only one dimension. We need to be able to operationalize and work efficient with good processes for many, many years to come. And at some point in time, if this is not being addressed, it will also translate into the partners. So I think, yes, maybe they don't know the full story. And I think there is dimensions that needs to be addressed. And so I can only encourage this internal discussion in terms of how can we continue to improve. And I think we are actually discussing this a lot in the COG, in the management team, also on leadership and dimension that Tina's team has brought up. How can we continue to improve our organization to be able to avoid that the partners should know about some of these things that are happening in the back.
Thank you.
Catherine?
I would like to go actually a little bit further on this, because I find this also tremendously interesting, and of course there are super results which we can potentially all congratulate ourselves and each other. But the information that there is most probably, or we all know, there's much more information. There is regional relevance, what worked well, what did not work well. There is substantive relevance, there is the relevance towards the practices. And my interest would be to actually analyze these different categories of information and see what did not work well and what should we do different, and perhaps also have interdivisional groups who jointly see of what could be the lessons learned taken out of this, and how can we as operational units work together with you to go further with it. That would be my wish actually when I see this now.
Well, it's not Christmas Eve, but you will have your wish completed. So we will do this. This is only the beginning, it's the start. And there are so many layers of information that needs to be, that we can act on.
And in relation to the corporate priorities also.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, how...
So what information brings us further when it comes to strategic solutions, where I would say, all struggle still a little bit, leadership and so on and so forth. So there is potentially also a lot of information that helps us to move forward.
Yeah, and then just before, I fully agree with you, Catherine, and just before we came here, I discussed also with Thomas how this links into the strategic plan. What is it that needs to be highlighted from this into there? Because these are great results. We need to talk about this. Of course, we know there are things that we can improve, but we have, I think, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity in UNOPS now to show to others what we can do. But we need to understand the dimension. We need to understand what are the things we need to improve going forward. But it is... So good point. Yes. Now comes the tough questions again.
No, it's, I think it's really just following on to Marian's point. And I think, we live in a world of risk management, and everything that we try to do either manages risk or optimize benefits. So every time we put a plan in place, it's there to mitigate risk. Yeah. And we typically look at operational risk with an IPMG, but that's where we typically focus on, particularly within implementation support. And I think what we're looking at here is strategic risk. For me, this is, so I look at this and I think, okay, this is strategic risk. And for me, it did cross my mind. I thought, well, okay, so how can we learn from this data? This data is super important. It's great information. How do we pick up lessons learned? How do we pick up what are the main points of mitigation for the areas that we're not doing so well? Can you just share some thoughts on, risk mitigation for strategic risks, and where do you think we should move? We should be moving. We should be pressing.
Yes. So you're asking me difficult questions, but let me try to. Of course, there are some issues that has been flagged, and when you have high numbers like this, you really have to look in the details to find the negatives. We saw that the financial reporting as came out as one of them, right? But it's not so much about only reporting. It's about, I think the major risk from my perspective is if we don't deliver what we promise. If we actually say in an agreement, in an MOU or a financial agreement, say, we will do this for you, and then after we sign a deal, we walk away and say goodbye, and then we forget to actually deliver on our promises. If you do that with Japan, for example, and we are off for 10 years. We will not be able to deliver a new project for Japan. So the main risk for me is really to not deliver on what we promise. But what we will do is we will do an action plan following these issues that was highlighted here. So this will be one of the outcomes, and we are going to discuss this afternoon. So you will hear more on the identification of these major issues. But I do want to add a positive note to your question, if I may. No, because I think it's actually more about how can you use what we're good at to become an even more important partner. And what does it take for us to take that step, for example, with the UN Secretariat in New York or others? Because the discipline of delivering well has now been recognized, I think, as important. And how can you actually bring that story further? So, but you will hear more on the risk mitigation. Henrik is probably also going to ask me that question if he's in the room. Now he's hiding in the back. Yeah. Okay, so we have 10 minutes left, so I think maybe Grete could do the closing. So, thank you.
Okay, so thank you to Nikolaj and to all of you to making this a great event. Again, congratulations on the 91% partner satisfaction. It's like a caramel. Let's suck on it for some time, but it will not last. It will actually be very important for us to pick up the survey and take guidance from the answers in a big way. And just to give you the full picture, when I, COG, and all of us try to identify and take out the full potential of UNOPS, we are guided by the people survey, we are guided by the partner survey, we are guided by all the initiatives and ideas that come out of this great organization. And we have to put it into our strategic plan, in our budgets, in how we work together, our work processes. This is a circle. This is not something that is done once. It is something that we will need to work on continuously. And that is why I also felt the interaction here was great, because I hear such great interest in working together to realize our joint potential. And I use this as, again, an opportunity to quote the Secretary General. He knows us. As head of UNHCR, he knows also how we can help an organization like that in releasing its potential. And I love it when he actually challenged his senior management team by saying, on the management reform, I've been guided to give it all to UNOPS. Now I hear the silence in the room. It was probably also a virtual silence out there. But think of what that says about our potential. We're not ready to do that tomorrow. We may not even be ready this year, but there is somebody who sees the potential and has guided the Secretary General. It's humbling. It asks for respect. But times are changing. I was yesterday in Geneva, also the day before. 2 times I had a discussion with the senior UN managers in Geneva, as well as the Deputy Secretary General. Management reform is real. It needs to come. Times are not like they were. Donors are requesting a change. The SDGs in itself are requesting a change. Can we adapt? This is pretty much what we have included in our strategic thinking already in the midterm review last year. That is what we already, therefore, did well in positioning ourselves to respond quickly to the SDGs priorities, and that is now guiding our new strategic plan. What am I trying to tell you? It's the processes. It is actually to work on these things together that maybe will allow us to be this short step ahead and be able to deliver more to achieve the SDGs. When partners have responded, they also show some of their expectations. What do they measure us against? We have decided to step up the game a bit, be able to work with all kinds of partners, whether they come from public or private sector. That is putting a new pressure on us, and we do it voluntarily. So the expectations, we have met them well with the clients, the partners who know us. We may even see in some of those responses expectations on us where they would like us to have been not as good at delivering. So there may be competing views as well in those responses. I think we still can improve. So drive the excellence together is really important. I have been working on our position, our profile, because these numbers show a potential, but it also shows that there are too many out there who don't know us. And who can work with us if they don't know us? So this is also part of what we need to do. I think we can take on a stronger ambition, because these surveys we do, these processes we have put in place, actually allow us to step by step become better. Financial reporting. Well, that is something that people should expect. So when I see high numbers in satisfaction, there may be something about low expectations in an organization like UNOPS and the UN family. So here is immediately an area where we could deliver far beyond expectations, in my view. So pick these items one by one and see how do we step up the game. We will have a COG meeting in 30 minutes. I will already ask, so how do we build an action plan to address this? Because I don't expect single individuals, single units to start digging. We need to take this as a coordinated process. So you will hear back from COG about how we will follow up, but I'm really excited. We have more responses than ever. We have deep knowledge. We can build it also to understand better how it's linking back to our people survey and build from there. So thank you very much for joining us now in the presentation, and also let's follow up together. Thank you very much.